Welcome to our discussion on principles of economics once again. Today, we are going to talk about externality and market failure. So, this is externality and market failure. If you recall, in one of our previous sessions, we discussed that market is usually a good way of organizing economic activities. That means, market efficiently allocates resources, and in this process market decides what to produce, how much to produce, how to produce and who will buy them. And at the end, market outcome is social welfare maximizing. But we also mentioned that we are talking about only a specific type of market there, which is called perfectly competitive market. Perfectly competitive market. That means, there are n number of buyers and sellers in the market. No single individual can actually influence the market outcome. Okay. Now, the question is, when you are talking about perfectly competitive market and we say that perfectly competitive market ensures maximum social welfare, there are two things that are required. One is a complete set of market for all economic transactions to be covered, and secondly, success of market also conditional upon existence of well defined property right. Well defined property right. Now, when I say well defined property right, there are certain characteristics or conditions to be fulfilled to say that a property right is well defined. Firstly, it should be comprehensive. What does that mean? Comprehensiveness means that all the resources or assets in the economy are either privately owned or publicly owned. So, that means there is a owner. Then we say that this is comprehensive. Property right is comprehensive. All the assets and resources in the economy are privately or publicly owned. Secondly, it should be exclusive. What does that mean? It means any benefit or cost coming out of the uses of any resources must go to the owner only and only to the owner. So, that means the resource owner himself or herself only enjoy the benefits of using it, and if at all there is any cost, that cost also is incurred only by the resource owner, no one else. Thirdly, the property must be transferable That means, if a property is owning to me, I have the right to transfer it to someone. Why is it required? Because if property right is non-transferable, then the property owner does not have any incentive to maintain the quality of it, right. Now, you might be thinking that is true for each and every cases. Why do we need to specify this explicitly? We need to specify this explicitly because in certain contexts property rights are not well defined. For example, if you buy an air ticket, only you can travel. You cannot give this ticket to your friend for traveling. If you have a voter ID card, only you can cast your vote, no one else, right. But many other properties are transferable. If I am a house owner, I can easily sell it to others, then we say that this is transferable property right. And fourthly, secure or security. The property owner must feel security over his or her property. Property owner should not feel any fear of illegal encroachment. In that case, property owner will not produce anything or will not own any property. For example, when the farmer is producing something, farmer is believing that no one else will illegally encroach to his or her product. In that case, there will not be any supply of any product in the economy. So, these are the characteristics of well defined property right. Now, in certain circumstances, property rights are not well defined, and that creates some situation which is called externality, okay, which is called externality. For example, I am saying that it is comprehensive. That means, for each and every transaction there is a market to cover. It is exclusive. That means, only the owner of the property must enjoy it, and any cost, if it is coming out of that economic transaction, that must also be incurred by the property owner or the agent who is the principal party to conduct that particular transaction. Now, what happens in case of externality? Economic transaction impacts a third party for which he or she neither gets any compensation nor pay for it. For example, if a particular person smokes in a crowded area, then so many others who are actually not involved in smoking, they will also get affected, but the smoker is not compensating for the damage he is creating to other people. So, that means, here even without being involved in that particular activity called smoking, others are getting affected without any compensation. So, that means, cost of that pollution or that smoking is not limited only to the smoker, but is also getting incurred by others. Others are also incurring the cost, health cost, but they are not getting any compensation. And also, there is no market to take care of this pollution. There is no market for clean air either. In that case, we say that property right is not well defined. That means, externality is a context wherein property right is not well defined, which is basically a prerequisite for market success. That is why in presence of externality, market fails. There are two types of externality. One is called negative externality the examples what we have given, the pollution is basically an example of negative externality. That means, when the smoker is smoking, the smoker is impacting others who are there in that locality negatively, for which the smoker is not compensating. So, for non-smokers it is a cost, that is why it is an example of negative externality. If a firm is polluting the air, then the people who are residing in that locality is also getting affected, for which the firm is not compensating them, then also they are negatively impacted. So, that means negative externality is a context wherein somebody's economic transaction impacts others negatively, for which they do not get any compensation. Okay. Secondly, externality can be positive also. For example, let us say you are staying in hostel and your friend next door is playing a nice music, you are also enjoying the music, but you are not paying anything to your friend just because you are enjoying because of his or her activity. So, without being directly involved in playing the music or buying the CD or cassettes, you are also enjoying, but you are not paying anything. So, somebody's action is giving a positive impact on you, then we say that this is a positive externality. Whatever might be the nature of externality, in presence of externality market fails, because property right is not well defined in this context, which is a prerequisite for market failure. We will discuss in detail about negative externality first, then we will use the analogy to understand what should we do in presence of positive externality, so that market can work perfectly. So, in presence of externality, what we need? We need government intervention. Okay? We need government intervention in the form of regulation. When a firm is polluting, since there is no well defined property right, government has to intervene and impose some kind of pollution tax or impose some kind of penalty on the firms for polluting the air. So, that means externality requires government intervention. And intervention can be of two types, either tax or subsidy. In presence of externality, government intervene and impose tax. In presence of positive externality, government has to give subsidy. So, that is one way of correcting market failure due to externality. But Ronald Coase long back, he said that when there is externality, we can achieve efficient level of pollution, or we can achieve maximum social welfare even without direct government intervention, if we can assign property right and give it to any of the two parties, either to the polluter or to the pollutee. Pollutee means who are suffering from pollution. And initial distribution does not matter in the final outcome. Please keep one thing in mind, when there is negative externality and government intervene, the objective of that government intervention is not to make the pollution zero, because zero pollution means zero production of goods and services also, and we cannot survive without the production of goods and services. So, we need goods and services, we also need clean environment. That is why there is a trade off, as I mentioned earlier. So, the only thing we can achieve is the optimum or efficient level of pollution, and that is what is the objective of government intervention in the form of imposing tax. But Coase said, Ronald Coase, he basically came up with a theorem which is Coase theorem, which says if the world is transaction cost free, what does it mean? That means polluter can easily identify the pollutee who is suffering. Pollutee can also easily identify who is polluting. So, without any transaction cost. So, if the world is transaction cost free, then property right given either to the polluter or to the pollutee will ensure efficient level of pollution without government intervention. And initial allocation of property right, does not matter. Okay, whether you are giving the property right to the polluter or to the pollutee, it does not matter. Irrespective of the initial allocation of property right, if you give it either to the polluter or to the pollutee, then what they will do? They will involve themselves in a costless bargaining, and that bargaining will ensure efficient allocation of property right. Okay. So, I will say that property right given either to the polluter or to the pollutee will ensure efficient level of pollution by bargaining without any government intervention, and initial allocation of property right does not matter, right. So, let us try to understand. So, this is very interesting. First of all, without government intervention, it is ensuring initial efficient level of pollution. Secondly, initial distribution also does not matter. So, this is an interesting case. So, let us try to understand what is happening in the context of Coase theorem using a simple diagram. So, let us say that in this axis I am measuring polluter's cost, benefit or whatever. In this axis I am measuring pollutee. Why I am measuring dollar here, dollar or rupee whatever? Because it is easy to measure cost, benefit, price, everything in terms of dollar or rupee. That is the reason. Okay. This is basically the marginal benefit of, this is called MB of pollution, and this is basically marginal cost of pollution control. You might be thinking, what is the benefit of marginal pollution? Pollution per se has no benefit, but you know, when you make pollution, pollution is actually coming out of production. So, when I say marginal benefit of pollution, this is basically marginal benefit of the production itself, right. So, we will give different name, let us say this is A, this is B, this is C, this is D. Okay. Let us now assume that property right is given case 1. Property right is given to the polluter. Okay. Property right is given to the polluter, and in Gaussian bargaining or in Gauss theorem, there is a classic example of this externality. Let us assume that there is a river and there are two forms, they are called upstream and downstream form. A is called upstream form and B is downstream form. This is upstream. This is downstream. This upstream form A is actually producing something and at the same time making pollution which he dumps to the river. The river is getting polluted. Downstream form is actually making drinking water. So, if the water gets polluted, then form B incurs some amount of cost to clean the water and then only he can make drinking water, right. This is the case. So, we are assuming the property right is given to the upstream form who is the polluter. So, when property right is given to the polluter, what would be the level of pollution? Can you think of? From this diagram, what should be the level of pollution? In this axis, I am measuring pollution. Obviously, the polluter will pollute as long as marginal benefit of pollution is positive, and he will stop when marginal benefit of pollution is actually 0. So, that means, in this case I am now talking about pre-negotiation period. Level of pollution equals to AO, because at O only marginal benefit is 0. So, level of pollution is AO. What is the benefit of the polluter? Benefit to the polluter equals to the triangle AOD. Okay. For this much amount, this is the benefit, for this much, this is the benefit. So, if you take the entire triangle, then that is the total benefit to the polluter. Okay. And what is the cost to the polluter? Cost is measured from this curve, from this line. So, for this amount of pollution, this is the cost, for this amount, this is the cost. So, that means if you take the entire area of this triangle AOC, that is the cost to the polluter. So, cost to the polluter equals to then triangle AOC. Okay. So, what is the total benefit or social benefit? Social welfare. Let us assume for simplicity's sake, in a society there are only two players or two individuals, one is the polluter, another one is the pollutee. So, that should be equals to triangle AOD minus triangle AOC. Why this is minus? Because this is cost. So, cost comes with a negative sign. This is the social benefit. Now, suppose the pollutee is going to the polluter and requesting, could you please reduce your pollution? Do you think the polluter will listen? No, because property right is given to the polluter. Why should the polluter listen to his request? Polluter is saying, yes, of course, I can reduce my pollution if you bribe me. That means you have to pay money for reducing my pollution. So, pollutee is then thinking how much to bribe. Pollutee is saying, if you reduce this unit this much from here to here, then I will bribe you this much. So, that means exactly the marginal benefit amount. Then polluter is happy. Okay? Pollution reduction means the benefit will come down for the polluter. So, if the bribe amount is exactly equals to the lost benefit, then the polluter is fine with it, right. For an additional unit, again the bribe would be decided by the marginal benefit curve. If you do so, the optimum bribe would be this amount, where marginal benefit and marginal cost is equal. So, let us say this is BQ. BQ is the optimum bribe, right. So, in the post bargaining situation, this is post negotiation. Optimum bribe equals to BQ. Okay. And what would be the optimum level of pollution? Level of pollution equals to AQ, because now it has been reduced from O to Q. Earlier it was AO, now it is only AQ, because this amount is reduced after the pollutee pays bribe to the polluter. Now, interesting question is, what is the benefit to the polluter? Total benefit to the polluter. So, polluter is now polluting up to AQ. So, that means the area ADAQD or AQBD, this is the area which is coming as a benefit to the polluter. At the same time, polluter is also receiving bribe from the pollutee. So, that should also be added to the polluter's benefit. So, what is the bribe amount? Look at this. let us say that this is B r. So, this triangle gives indicates the amount of bribe that the polluter is receiving. Why this is the amount of bribe? Because B q is the optimum bribe and this is the amount reduction which is A q. So, B q multiplied by this is nothing but the area of this triangle. So, that means plus the area which is B q O r, that is the total benefit to the polluter. What is the total cost to the pollutee in the post negotiation period? In the post negotiation period, pollution is only up to A q amount. So, obviously, cost is determined from the marginal cost curve. So, if you take the area of this triangle, so that means cost to the pollutee equals to the triangle A Q B. This cost is the cost of pollution control. Apart from this, is there any other cost incurred by the pollutee? Yes, because pollutee is paying the bribe amount. So, the bribe which was beneficial for the polluter, this area B Q O R, should also be added to the cost to the pollutee, right, plus the area B Q O R. This is the total cost. Okay. Now, if you compare the benefit of the polluter in the pre and post negotiation period, you can easily understand that there is a gain to the polluter. Earlier, the polluter's benefit was given by AOD, that means AOD, this entire triangle. Now, the benefit is in the post negotiation period AQBD plus BQOR. So, that means this area is net gain to the pollutee. Similarly, if you think from the pollutee's point of view, earlier the pollutee's cost was AOC, the entire triangle AOC. Now, it is AQB plus this rectangle. So, that means there is a net benefit to the pollutee as well in the form of lower cost. So, cost of pollution control was earlier this entire triangle AOC, but now it is only AQB plus this triangle. So, that means there is a reduction in cost to the pollutee. So, this is a net gain to the pollutee, sorry, this is polluter, this is the net gain to the polluter and this is pollutee in the form of reduction in cost. So, that means one thing is very clear, in the post bargaining period both the polluter and the pollutee are better off. So, that means according to Coase theorem, when property right is well defined and given to one of the parties, their costless bargaining is reaching to a solution AQ, which is basically beneficial for both the parties. So, that means this is a better situation. Post negotiation achieves efficiency in Pareto sense. One of the famous economists, Pareto, he said that if any distribution improves welfare of one party without reducing the welfare of the other, then the new allocation is called Pareto efficient or Pareto improvement, right. So, that means post negotiation results in efficient pollution. That is what we came to know.